Join spiritual feminist and empowerment coach Joni Advent Maher for Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow. Listen in for intimate conversations about money, transformation, and feminine sovereignty. And now, your host, Joni Advent Maher.
Welcome to Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow. I'm your host, Joni Advent Maher, and I am so honored and delighted to be here with you today. In just another month, I'm going to be celebrating my 100th episode, and that feels like a really big deal. I've been at this for just about 4 years, and just reflecting on all the ways that I have grown and changed, all the wisdom that has passed through this vehicle of Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow. It just fills my heart. And I am looking forward to 4 more years of being with you and beyond. So I'm deeply grateful for you, my dear listener, for being here with us, whether this is your first time or whether you've been with us from the beginning or somewhere along the way, got on the bandwagon. I'm so happy to have you here. Today, I would love to talk to you about grace. And it seems to me that we could all do with a little more grace right about now. It seems like for many of us, we're just feeling a bit worn thin after so many weeks of confinement, stress, and unpredictability in our lives. And so grace is a powerful medicine that is always available for us. And it felt important to remember that and for us to spend some time talking about grace, opening to grace, entering a space of grace. So I wanted to share with you a reading from a book that I refer to and use often called The Sophia Code by Kaia Ra. And it's really a spiritual transmission more than a book. It's a very powerful resource. But there is a chapter or a segment on grace, and I wanted to share some of the pearls that came through that I felt like were so powerful with you. So to begin, it's on page 48, chapter 5, and it's called Surrendering into an Age of Grace, which certainly seems like our invitation at this time. The seed of all miracles is faith, and the space in which those miracles blossom is called grace. Grace is an invincible presence that cannot be bought, sold, or traded for. Grace cannot be earned, for it is freely available, regardless of all circumstances. So I want to pause there. Just that idea of grace cannot be earned. I think one of the hallmarks of grace is the fact that it is not earned. And it seems that so often, whether it's grace or blessings or abundance or joy or peace or prosperity, so often we operate with the assumption that it must be earned, that there is something we need to do to make ourselves enough or worthy of receiving grace or receiving well-being into our lives. And I just want to punctuate that and just say that the truth about grace is that we are always worthy, that you, just as you are today, are beyond worthy enough to let grace into your lives. It's freely available. That's the other piece I want to underscore. It is as ubiquitous as the air that we breathe. And I think that is, I think most of us, I would say 99.9% of us, are not living in that reality that grace is really our ever-present state. So I want to read a little bit more. Grace is the space that your soul was birthed in, free of any conditions. Grace is the space where what is ready to return to a natural balance may spontaneously return to that balance without apology, explanation, or delay. So I think about that. I think spontaneous healing. I think about a knot that's been tangled that is just simply melts open and is freed. That is the potential that dwells in grace. Humanity is ready for the spaciousness of grace. Grace knows how to end wars that humanity does not know how to end. Grace knows how to be at peace when humanity does not know how to be at peace with itself. And while this is referring to a larger global sense of war and peace, I believe it's also speaking to peace and war within our own hearts. It's speaking to the ways that we might be at war within ourselves, with the presence of our inner critic or an inner punisher that has us like a house divided. Grace knows how to forgive what feels unforgivable. Grace also knows how to love what feels unlovable. And I want you to just take a moment and think back to a time when you experienced grace. When grace came into your life unbidden. And just see if you can resonate with that sense of whether it's having what you thought was unforgivable be forgiven, or some aspect of you that has felt unlovable, receiving love. Just drink that in. And the last piece I want to share is that other than your willingness to receive her mighty works, grace does not need human participation to work. I'm going to read that again. So, other than your willingness to receive her mighty works, grace does not need your participation to work a perfect divine will for all to be blessed. So grace holds the solutions to those things that confound us and feel unsolvable. So I want you to just scan your life, your day, your week, your month. What is it that you're facing? What is it that you're carrying in your heart that feels vexing, that feels like a dilemma that you just don't have the answer to, that feels unsolvable? And it may be something in the larger collective. It may be what we're all experiencing right now. But I want you to just imagine that you could put it in the palm of your hand and hold it out and offer it to that spaciousness of grace. And that idea of spaciousness, holding the grace, I just want to remind us that we are actually more space than we are solid form. The electrons that make up ultimately our bodies have more space in between them than they do the actual form. And I believe that is where grace dwells. It dwells within the spaciousness within us. It dwells within the spaciousness around us. And that all we have to do is to be willing to receive it. Now, receiving for many of us can be a tall order. We may not be very adept at receiving. We may be great at giving. We might be great at earning, but just openly receiving might feel like one of the hardest things that we can do. And if that's the case for you, I want to invite you today just to use your intention to soften any resistance you might have to receiving good coming to you. It's absolutely okay to have boundaries or to have filters or limits so that you're only open to receiving that which is good and supportive for you. But if you're feeling a block there with receiving, again, whether it's prosperity, abundance, health, well-being, grace, it's always an issue of worthiness and self-worth, and somewhere within you not feeling good enough or enough in order to receive. So I would invite you to use this opportunity to bring some healing to that. And again, if you could imagine just extending your hand into the space around you, the space in front of you, just extending your hand and feeling the presence of a balm, a grace-filled balm, that you could just take that hand and bring it to whatever part of your body is holding that sense of unworthiness. You don't need to carry it any longer. You have done your time, and it's time to set yourself free and open to more grace. Because guess what? The more grace-filled you are, the easier it is to be gracious with others. And again, we could definitely do with graciousness all around these days. We could definitely do with more of that. So you are not serving anyone by holding on to the worthiness, the unworthiness. It's not helping you. It's not helping the whole. What is actually the most healing for all of us is for you to love and accept yourself in those ways that you can take in even more grace, and that you can be a conduit for grace. You can be a transmitter of grace, that you can send grace out to the world. Where would you like to send grace? I can think of a few places. So in this moment, just imagine yourself being that conduit, being that channel, receiving the grace in, perhaps even receiving it in through your left hand, sending it through your heart, and then transmitting it out through your right hand. That feels good, doesn't it? So one of the last pieces I want to name, which I mentioned, it's really this idea of forgiveness. forgiving what's unforgivable. And similar to the idea of not feeling worthy, there are times when forgiveness is necessary, whether it's self-forgiveness or forgiveness of others. But to the extent we have that hardened place within our heart, it's going to obstruct our capacity to receive. And remembering the only thing that's required for us to experience grace in our lives is our willingness to receive. And I would dare say, when it gets in the way, our willingness to engage in a forgiveness practice. And forgiveness can certainly be a process, but we can make the decision to engage in that process, to be in a process around forgiving, which can sometimes mean feeling all of our feelings, feeling the hurt, feeling the anger, feeling the sense of betrayal, whatever the case may be. Only then can we be freed of the burden of holding on to what is unforgivable. And again, we can use grace as that healing balm. So once again, if there is anything in your world that feels like it needs forgiveness, whether it's within you or externally, I want you to put your hand out to receive the healing balm of grace. And if it's within you, to just bring that balm back into your body. And if it is in a relationship with someone else, just to imagine that you could put that on their heart. And let's take 3 deep breaths. So, my dear, as we bring this to a close, I want to help you remember that grace is always available and that grace dwells in the spaciousness. So I want you to look around the space that you're in, and you'll see the objects or the furniture, or if you're in the car, the steering wheel and the windows. And I want you to notice all the empty space, all the negative space, as they say, the space that doesn't hold anything other than, I want you to notice and imagine, other than grace. Can you imagine walking across the room and sensing I am walking through the space of grace? Or driving your car down the road and driving through the space of grace. So I want to just plant that in your mind and have you hold on to that, I hope, so that grace can be closer and more present in your world. I want to send you big love from me to you as we're getting ready to close, and to tell you again that my 100th episode, my anniversary, is coming up next month. I would love to have you there to join me. I'm going to be having some exciting things going on for that. I think we're going to be having a special giveaway, a special, why can I not think of the word, contest to help spread the word, because we want as many women and or men who are interested in listening to this show as possible to find out about it. So we're going to do a little contest to help spread the word and win some prizes. So be on the lookout for that. And as always, as we bring this to a close, sending you my love with the reminder to always trust what your heart knows.
Thanks for listening to Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow with Joni Advent Maher. If you like what you heard, the best compliment you can give us is to share our podcast with a friend and subscribe, rate, and review at Apple Podcasts.